I thought it was kind of like a little treasure hunt type thing where we went around and it wasn't too properly labeled, you know, how to find the actual spot that his remains were, where, what's the right word for like stashed? Interred, yeah.
Called interred, yeah.
Interred. So that was kind of a process, and then we thought we found the right spot, but then it wasn't labeled correctly, and then my dad just turned around and it happened to be right next to it.
Our hero.
Yes.
My brother.
Tell us about it. Dad. What were you thinking at that moment?
We're going on an ancestry adventure, walking in the footsteps of our ancestors. I am Aimee and I am your genealogy tour guide. Now, heritage travel is a lot of fun, but if you need some help just building the family tree or learning how to find certain records and improve your genealogy, take it to the next level, then visit my sister channel at Ancestry Aimee for all of those tips to take your family history to the next level. You can also hit my website, ancestryamee.com, and there you can find additional guides, including a couple of free ones. San Francisco is an amazing city with such a rich history. And I am so excited because one of my ancestors, Pierre Dumont, traveled to San Francisco with those other 49ers in search of gold. I don't think he found much because he ended up not panning for gold for very long, but it's part of our wonderful family history of San Francisco. And that family line has remained in San Francisco, some of them still living there to this day. It's exciting for me to go to San Francisco to learn more about my ancestor and to enjoy the city, because there's a lot to see. Now, according to family lore, he left France, probably went to New York, maybe one of the other eastern ports, and then traveled around the Cape. However, a lot of people during that time traveled over to where the Panama Canal is now, got off the ship, walked across that narrow strip of land, and then took passage up into San Francisco. But even though Pierre may have not been so successful panning for gold, he ended up finding prosperity as he worked as a lithographer, which is like a printer of today, for a very well-known company, Britton and Ray. And he must have made some pretty good money because he ended up going back to France and getting his bride and bringing her back to San Francisco. So he did all right for himself. Now, my grandma Georgette, Pierre's granddaughter, told many stories about life in San Francisco, but my brother and his family hadn't heard of them. Enter genealogy girl. I was going to Oakland for my nephew's graduation from Berkeley. Go Bears. Congrats, Ryan. That is truly an accomplishment, and I'm really proud of you and so happy for you. We decided to spend a day visiting the family history sites because although I knew the stories, my brother and his family didn't. So I made these booklets in advance for all of the members of the family so that they could have a little bit of a description of our family history in San Francisco and an understanding of the different places that we were going to go while we did our family tour. If you would like more information about how I created this book and the facts that I thought were important to share with my family, I have a video on my sister channel at Ancestry Aimee where I talk a lot more about developing your own family history tour. That's more instructional. In this one, we're gonna go on the tour together. So hold on tight, here we go. We started in Oakland and drove by the Claremont Country Club where our great-grandfather, George Cecil Stevenson, was working as the club manager when he died. We stopped at that nearby Mountain View Cemetery where he was interred, then across the bridge to San Francisco to see the family's homes. Now, George Cecil Stevenson and his wife Kate and their son George and Robert resided in this home in 1820, where my grandfather, George William, as a young boy lived. This house was for sale when we came up to it. And by going to the realtor site, we could see pictures of the inside of the house, which was really fun. It's too bad it wasn't an open house that day. So after making a quick stop at this house, we went to a nearby park to stop and talk about our adventures thus far.
Like and subscribe to Ancestry Aimee.
We went to the mausoleum where we found, and I had never been there before, where we found George Cecil, and I knew George Cecil was there, but it was mislabeled, right? It wasn't in the right spot. And then we found them. Did you guys have fun doing that? I think that's so fun, but what about you guys?
I thought it was kind of like a little treasure hunt type thing where we thought we found the right spot, but then it wasn't labeled correctly. And then my dad just turned around and it happened to be right next to it.
Our hero,
Yes.
my brother.
Tell us about Eagle-eyed dad. What were you thinking at that moment? I was thinking that maybe we should look next to it, and maybe we would find it, and
Yeah.
we did. Yeah.
But it was
So
a cross, because I looked on
Yeah.
either side and I hadn't seen it, and then you turned around and it was right there. But I think the really cool thing was we found 2 other family members, including our grandfather, your great-grandfather, and your great-great-grandmother were there that I didn't know were there. So I got some work to do to put their information up on Find a Grave and Billion Graves and stuff like that. But that, for me, that was super fun because I didn't know they were there. I thought that was really cool.
So it's like 2 discoveries in one. Right?
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool because it's just, we weren't expecting to see that.
Do you guys feel like, I'm really curious how you feel because I do this so much, but for me, when I go to a cemetery and find family, it's really meaningful to me. You know what I mean? It's like, I know we were all excited because we found them and it took us a long time to find them, but I still, and maybe that's just, I kind of wondering, is that just me because I'm a weird genealogist, or for you guys, is it kind of meaningful to be there where you know your family, your great-great-grandparents or something like that, or have been laid to rest, you know what I mean? What do you guys think? Go on, Ryan, I know you want to say something.
At least for me, I think honestly, the difference between a buried body and a cremated body are a little bit different.
Oh, that's a good point.
Where, kind of standing, on a grave under the grass, in my opinion, feels a little bit more like, maybe natural is the right word. But, so kind of in a moratorium, right? So a crematorium? Mortuary?
No, it's a
mausoleum.
Mausoleum.
Thank you,
Yeah.
mausoleum.
So being a mausoleum, it feels a little bit like more removed, but I think it's a very pretty building, and that kind of aspect of it, it's definitely a very beautiful place to be laid to rest. But I think it's that kind of, to me, removes a little bit of the human aspect of it. That it kind of definitely feels more of like to not be an insensitive word, but almost like kind of a storage cabinet as opposed to.
Well, it is, for sure. What about you? I'm curious what you thought, because that's just your grandfather that we found.
Yeah,
if he's really there, we talked about that. I need to contact the cemetery and see if his remains are truly in there, because sometimes they are marked and they aren't. But
I thought it was it was interesting. I don't know that I've ever been in a mausoleum before, and I agree with Nicholas. I thought it was a kind of a nice, peaceful place and beautiful place to walk around, and it was a little a little touching to be there and to see where we know at least my great-grandfather was for sure. And so that was interesting to see that, and so I did feel a little connection there with him. We haven't been to a lot of grave sites of our family, so it was definitely something that I enjoyed doing and kind of checking up on him like that.
after finding the Stevenson places of interest, we moved on to the other side of the family, the Dumont family. My great-great-grandmother, Aimee Dumont, married the dashing George Paston, who worked on various ships, working his way up to chief steward. Now, George had come from England, and they had two daughters, Aimee, where I get my name, and Georgette, my grandmother. My grandma Georgette is the one with all those stories. And this is a really fun picture because this was a picture of my brother and I when we were very young with my grandmother when she was telling me some of those stories when I was just a kid. And then this is a picture of us now. I think a lot about grandma, you know, on these hilly, windy. When I come to San Francisco, I just think of grandma as a kid walking around, and I think it would have been a fun city. It's really kind of fun that we're here at Ghirardelli Square because this place meant a lot to grandma. You know, Ghirardelli Square, or Ghirardelli Chocolate Company, started in 1850-something. And we kind of, as we were walking down to it to get our ice creams, delicious ice creams, we passed Galileo High School. And that's where Grandma Georgette went to high school. And the really fun thing about it was, think about what high school would have been like. Grandma Georgette was born in 1914. She told me the story a bunch of times about how she'd go to school, and on a hot day, they'd open all the windows. And all you could do was smell, because Galileo High School is just right up this hill. all they could do is smell the chocolate. So can you imagine being in high school all day long and smelling chocolate?
That would be torture to be smelling chocolate all day while you're at school.
I know it. This is Grandma's building that she lived in after she was just a really little girl. By 1930, she was here at 1526. She owned all of it, and there were a number of apartments. And this was a huge source of income until she lost it.
This is the one that they changed the rate. They kept.
Yeah, this is the one that she did the adjustable rate mortgage on. And then ended up losing it. A lot of these buildings have been rebuilt over here, but some of the original stuff still stands. So we just did the walk from Ghirardelli Square to here, or from the high school to here. So, you know, when people say I walked 2 miles uphill the whole way, it almost works here. Yeah, you can see why during the earthquake and the fire, when the buildings that fell down, I mean, one building goes down, the buildings all around it are going to go down. And then if one building caught on fire, like in that booklet that you guys looked at, I talked about after the earthquake, there's these pictures of everybody with like this kitchen in the street. Because what happened was even after the fire had passed, then people went in their houses and there was a problem with gas lines and stuff like that. They would try to cook and then their fires would start again. So they had a city ordinance that required you to set up a little kitchen, and so you saw all these little kitchens kind of in the middle of the streets. And that's what people did. I don't know for how long, but it must have been so traumatic to live through that earthquake.
There's a lot, so many people stay here, especially if they lost everything they had anyways,
Yeah.
Because they would be, I would think they would be also just concerned there was going to be another earthquake at any moment,
Yeah. Well, I know there were aftershocks, so they did have, additional damage. But from what I understand, the earthquake did a lot of damage, but it was the fires that really did a lot of damage. This church was built in the 1850s, I think, the first one of these churches. It actually started, I think, as a Baptist or Methodist church, and then it was a Catholic French population that bought it and made that into their church. But then when the earthquake came and then the fires started, this whole area here burned down right here that we're in. It totally went down. I guess there was maybe a cemetery around it, or there's some grounds behind it. I have not been in this church. The priest evidently took all of the records and the sacred, in Catholicism they have the sacred, and I'm sorry that I can't think of what they're called, but anyway, the sacred relics, I guess, is for lack of another word. But he took all the baptismal records, all of their records, and those sacred relics, and he buried them. This church is like one of the few churches whose pre-1906 records were saved because of what that Catholic priest did. So it's kind of cool, and that helps us because our family records were saved because of him. Otherwise, our records would have been gone too. It's really cool. I mean, we're right here by the Golden Gate. And then we got Alcatraz over here. You guys all see Alcatraz? So when Grandma Georgette was a little girl, and I don't know if it's when she was living at the house that we went to that, we took the picture at, or when it was later. One of her best friends was a guard. Her dad was a guard at Alcatraz. And at the time, the Alcatraz guards lived on Alcatraz. They had like a place where the guards could go and hang out, and they had a bowling alley in it. And the bowling alley was an old-time bowling alley. Somebody manually set the pins, and they would have prisoners set the pins. And Grandma used to go over to Alcatraz with her buddy, and they would go over, and she would hang out with her at her friend's house, and they would go bowling at Alcatraz with prisoners setting pins. And I think that's the greatest story. Yeah. But you guys have done the Alcatraz tour, haven't you?
Yeah, we did. I remembered as a kid going to Alcatraz when Dad brought us.
We did, yeah. There's a picture of you behind bars. I gotta find that picture.
Well, and what I remember happening, and it may be, and it's not really a real memory, was that in the solitary confinement cell, they would let people, if they wanted to, go inside, and they would close the door, and you could see how dark it was in there. And I thought I remember doing
that. You're right.
Yes, I know, and because when we went back,
they didn't.
I remember
do that
talking.
anymore?
Yeah, and I'm sure that there's reasons, not to do that now.
One of the crazy things that happened in San Francisco actually affected my family. While people were being buried, all those 49ers, because there was a lot of people that died on the ships and when they first arrived in San Francisco, as the city grew, the burials ended up changing and getting moved, and eventually burials were completely banned within the city. And that affected my family. I found this fascinating, and I even wrote a booklet about the story because it intrigued me so much. All right, so in this park, once, when they moved all of these grave sites, and the families were given, it was like in the 1880s, 1890s, people were like, because as you can see from the city behind us, it started small over by the coastline because that's what it did, but it just kept expanding. And people were like, I don't want these dead bodies here, you know what I mean? And so then they moved cemeteries way out over here. And then that area got populated and they were like, oh, we don't want dead bodies around us. And so people started protesting in like 1890 saying, I don't want this, this isn't good. And so they started doing legislation like about 1900. They said no more burials in the city of San Francisco limits or anywhere in San Francisco. And then in like 1912, they started telling the cemeteries, you're gonna need to move the bodies and go somewhere else. And then by 1930, the cemeteries were reaching out to people, and by like the mid 1940s, it was done. And so what the cemeteries did, and each cemetery handled it a little bit differently, but they basically said they would reach out if they could find the family. Now remember, if these were 49ers, if they had come from the gold rush, they maybe couldn't even find, you know, the family. They had no idea who the next of kin would be, right? But if they could find the family, they told the family, you want to move your person? You know, you can move your person. And some of them said, we'll move the body for free, but you need to pay to move the headstone. Some of them said, we're not going to do any of it for you. They just kind of varied. But the headstones are big and they're heavy and they're granite, right? So moving them was really expensive, and a lot of families didn't want to do that. And quite frankly, our family members, you know, we talked earlier about Pierre Bernard and George Albert Dumont that were buried here in San Francisco. The grave marker now, because their bodies were moved to Colma, the grave marker there's no grave marker for them. There's just this angel that we'll go see later on today. And so I'm pretty confident they had a grave marker, because most people did, right? Mm-hmm. And the family just didn't take it. And so they didn't pay to have it moved. And so it's probably somewhere in San Francisco being used. And so what San Francisco did is they had these, and I have some pictures of them in that booklet that I made about this whole story, but they have these just dumping grounds, you know, like you do construction stuff, right? You do that all the time, right? So they would just have these piles of headstones and other, you know, things, and they just use them around the city. And so this park is quite old. And so because it's up on this hill, they wanted drainage. And what better for flat drainage ditches but a flat headstone? And so as we walk, and you know, and I'll put some pictures up on the screen too, but as we walk, you'll see, if you look carefully, and I know where a couple of them are that you can read, and because water's gone over them, it's deteriorated them a lot. But in some instances, you can still read them, but they were just broken into pieces. Okay. And I don't know, I kind of like, part of me is like recycling is good, but part of me is kind of, I don't know, what do you guys think about it?
I mean, I'm more on the side that I think reusing it makes sense, especially if it was need to be paid in order to transfer them. And I think, you know, some people just, if they didn't want them, then, you know, otherwise they would just gone for waste. So why not use it on these canals?
Yeah, I get it. Anybody else think differently?
No, he was saying
we can edit. We can edit anything out. If you say something stupid too, I'll just edit it out.
I wanted to talk.
I agree with Nicholas. It seems like it was good that they could use them for some purpose. Otherwise, I'm sure they would have just ground them up. It would have just become gravel and sand and stuff. So at least they were used. As long as nobody could take them, I suppose it would have been nice if the city had paid for that process of actually moving the headstones along with the bodies, but I understand that probably wasn't realistic at the time.
Yeah. Well, I just thought we could walk around. I know where some of them are, and I just thought we could kind of walk around and look at them for a minute. And plus, it's a beautiful park.
Yeah.
And then we can go on and do some more stuff. But anyway, that's the story of the crazy.
Oh, you know what I just realized? By the way, it's going to look like I'm shorter than these two because I'm down here.
Oh, dang it.
Uh-huh.
But by the way, a lot of the bodies, they've just put in mass graves.
That's what I thought. It was like this something mound or, you know.
Yeah. Each cemetery has a mass grave on there wherever they relocated. And so, and the only way we know the names of the people are for some records that, you know, that cemeteries had kept that actually were microfilmed and digitized. Yeah. But it actually got a lot worse because, you know, the 1906 earthquake actually moved bodies back up. And And so, and sometimes they would get exposed anyway, but it actually, like, I could understand that people were kind of like, but FYI, whenever there's a construction project here in San Francisco, especially in the area where these cemeteries were, they find more bodies because they didn't move them all.
Do you have any idea if they moved the bodies with some level of respect, or were they just, bulldozing piles of bodies and putting them in?
It kind of depends on the cemetery, because they each handled it differently. The Catholic cemetery, there was a priest there giving rites to every body that they moved, and they moved them like individually in a hearse, and they moved them very respectfully. But that wasn't the case so much in some of the other cemeteries. It kind of depended. This was the most fascinating. I had no idea. It was just like, so I didn't know anything about this, and I just thought, wow, this is crazy, man. But it happens in bigger cities. It's not like San Francisco is the only place this has happened to, but still, I think it's kind of crazy.
I mean, the further away from it in time that you get from the headstones, it's, you're further removed from the actual people, and it's interesting historically, to walk around and see all of these things.
For sure.
But minor like this, like this. I mean, this might have just been paving or something. Maybe this was never.
Well, no, that was probably a headstone.
Oh, you think it was that small? It was a headstone.
Yeah.
That
cut them down.
No, I get.
No,
it.
So but it's on that side too. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just wondering if it would have been a.
I don't know.
Because it's pretty small. Unless maybe they're just a little plaque. Maybe what it was is also
just those little plaques.
Kind of in the ground.
Would have just taken the time, a headstone, if it's this big, just cut them.
Oh, they did. Yeah, you see them where they're cut. And in one place, I have a picture where you see part 1 and part 2 of the same headstone, but they're broken.
It does look like it's part of the same one, but
yeah.
Is this one?
Yeah.
Oh, you see another one right here?
Well, just that third one.
Looks like it could have been part of it.
There's a couple of other places in the city where they use these headstones, and one of them is the seawall, which we won't really go there. But the other one is the wave organ, which I would like to try to get over there. We're coming up on the Presidio. This is part of the original fort. I mean, that's how San Francisco kind of started. It was built before the gold rush, this fort. And then there was also a mission. The San Francisco mission was one of the missions along this trail in California. And actually, that is the other place where people can be buried in San Francisco. They can't be buried there now, but there are still burials, some. A lot of them were moved from that area because a lot of that property got sold. But the San Francisco mission does have some cemeteries in it, or has a cemetery there too. But this is part of the Presidio, part of the original fort's land. As you can see, we're kind of coming into those different buildings there that are part of it. And there is a cemetery over here. But anyway, this was all part of that original fort, and it was protecting, the Golden Gate isn't far from here. It was protecting the entrance. Yeah, the entrance there. So this is the wave organ. To me, this, where the trash can is super obviously a memorial.
Yeah.
And then as you go, guys can go down, and there's little pipes coming out that carry the sound. But as you look around thinking about because it may be one of our great our great grandfather's headstone is in here somewhere. You don't see names on these ones so much, but these are this type of stuff is all
came from there.
Came from the big monuments, the big places.
Yeah.
Geocache. I would put a geocache.
Somebody geocaching?
No, I said I would put a geocache right in there.
Yeah. We ended the day with a visit to our family's gravesite in Colma. It was a nice way to end the day, but the shenanigans continue. Mic tossing, which turned off the mic. I did my best to fix that sound. Sorry about that.
I thought this was the cemetery that they brought all of the people from the cemeteries that were excavated in San Francisco.
Yeah, this is the cemetery. Pierre's wife bought that statue supposedly from, I think I have the receipt actually, from Italy. It's marble. And so she had them removed and brought over here before she died. Actually, there's a lot of people that are buried here. So Pierre's buried here, his son George Albert's buried here, his wife Estella's buried here, our great grandmother, their second great grandmother Aimee, and her husband George Paston are buried here. Her brother is buried here, and her sister and her husband is buried here. And I think there's like one or two more, but I don't know like where they are, but this is a pretty big plot, but they just did this one monument for the thing.
They're all actually right here.
Yeah. And there isn't, like, if you go around the back of it, you know, like a lot of headstones, you know, they have like maybe a big monument like this one does over here, but they don't have, you know, there's no names on here anywhere. The only way that you know is by going to the cemetery office and asking them. And that's kind of how I found out.
This would have only been where people were moved that the actual relatives moved them themselves here.
Yeah, there is a mass grave here in the cemetery somewhere. Some people did what our family did, but a lot of people, they just never reached the families and they just got moved into that mass grave. So tell me, now that we've kind of done this, and you guys are younger too, right? So most people that get into family history are a little bit older. But tell me, what was your favorite part of today? Tell me what maybe you want to learn more about. I'd love to hear kind of what you guys are thinking about, or maybe something we could have done different. I'm totally cool with that too.
I definitely think my favorite part was the mausoleum, because the fact that it was a bit of a treasure hunt, you know, to find, the fact that it wasn't well marked to me, to find where the remains were, as well as then there was an expected surprise that we got 2 more remains that we didn't know were there as well. So it had, you know, both a lot of pros. Now I think I have a good idea of the father's side of the father. So the grandfather's side, yes. But then the grandmother's side is also interesting, because I know that, you know, that Ancestry Aimee has done a lot of research into that. So
Stay tuned for part 2.
All right, Ryan, I'm going to make you talk.
I think my favorite part was also the mausoleum, for a lot of the reasons that Nicholas articulated so nicely. But I think I might also, my second favorite might have been looking at some of the old houses in San Francisco. I think that was pretty cool. Seeing someone walk into one of the houses.
Yeah.
Seeing one of the houses for sale for an amount that they kept it would have been pretty cool. And it was cool seeing like the path that Herb and Georgette would have taken to walk to school. And just seeing their overall neighborhood.
That's cool. Thank you. I'm so glad we did this together. It's been really fun to do this with you guys. All right, I want to hear from you too.
No, I really enjoyed it, and hearing the stories behind, you know, some of the history is interesting, and learning what was happening in San Francisco when, you know, your grandma Georgette was living here, and like the Golden Gate Bridge was being built, and the stories about her going to Alcatraz, you know, while it was a functioning prison, like those kind of stories, you know, like we were talking about, bring actual history to life and relating it to your family.
Well, yeah, I mean, I liked all the things that they've talked about. I mean, they kind of covered everything, I think. I did also like, you know, I know we talked about a lot, but the mausoleum was fun to look through and try to find the markers. And it was fun to be in the spaces that we know that our grandma was living in and was born in. That was really exciting and fun to see. And to try to put try to think about what it was like for her back she was born over 110 years ago. So that was kind of fun to relive things a little bit and try to get an idea what it would have been like to live in San Francisco. And it's easier, I think, to do that, or at least for a bit, we could kind of visualize it a little bit by actually being right there and being in front of her house and looking at her school, and so that was really fun. I really enjoyed that.
I really appreciate you guys coming with me, and I've enjoyed like our joking in the cars or driving from place to place. Other than just going to the sites that I've recorded, I've had a lot of fun with you guys today. It's been a lot of fun. We always have fun together, but I've really enjoyed that. So thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this genealogy adventure with me as we've learned more about the lives of the Pastons, the Dumonts, and the Stevensons and their experiences in San Francisco. Now here's a link over here to my sister channel, Ancestry Aimee, where you can get more tutorials and instructions on how to do your family history research. And this video is the video about how to plan a family history trip with your own family. Check that one out.